And there's a time when the sea gets rough. Fishes just float in the sea. Got to hold on. You got to hold on. It's Breakfast with Bob. Oh, yeah.
Poncho Man. We are presented by ES Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex Roca, Tanya Pura Resort, Rudy Project, Slow Twitch, our next guest, Coach to the Stars. Mr. Cliff English joins us. Cliff, you have a full roster coming up Saturday. Talk about some of your athletes, and it sounds like everybody's healthy.
Oh, everyone's doing great, and thanks for having me on the show again.
No problem, Cliff.
My
Love
pleasure.
it.
This is awesome.
It's not a bad view,
Yeah,
huh?
I know. I love it. This is your office, man. This is awesome.
It's the best. I love it when I don't have to move. We actually have food, and we've got all
Guests
the
come to
buddies.
you.
Exactly.
So yeah, no, absolutely. Great roster. Great bunch of athletes. I'm very proud of to be their coach.
Yeah.
Worked with most of them for a few years, and some of them a little longer than others. But with me, I'm very much about the relationship with my athlete. So there's definitely that emotion attached, and you become friends and you become very close. And so
Keep this guy a little closer with the waves, because we'll we'll lose
yeah,
you.
absolutely. So. That being said, it's wonderful when you get to see them in this position where everyone's healthy, everyone's been doing the training incredibly well, and you're just as a coach like, well, okay, this is good, this is perfect. Like maybe it's almost too perfect, but
Don't make any mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't go on your moped.
Yeah. So it's been good, and they've all come in a wonderful spot, and it's just great to see.
What's the people? Leanda Cave.
Yes.
She wins here in 2012, and. Sometimes you go on a little victory parade after you win, and it's like, hey, my goal in life was to win. I won. And in one of the gutsiest performances I've ever seen, she's about to get passed by Miranda Carfrey, the best runner in the sport. Not only she hold her off, she goes off and catches Caroline Steffen and wins the race.
Yeah.
I can see where at that point you're going, okay, well, what else can I do? It's sort of like Chrissy Wellington coming back in 11 with the crashing and winning the race. She seems motivated this year like I haven't seen her in the last couple of years.
She is.
Yes.
Yes. When I started to work with Leanda again, she was in a pretty rough place. I mean, she was injured. She wasn't running. Probably about 3-4 months off the bike as well.
And that was when?
That was end of 2013.
Okay. Yeah.
So. I had to really reevaluate. I mean, she wasn't even sure she was going to retire. Was this it?
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
You got a great relationship. It's like I'm traveling the world.
Yeah. And it's hard, and as an athlete, you're trying to find answers, and you see a lot of different people, and you can really be sent in a few circles, and I know it was definitely frustrating. I think the time off was excellent for her, and it really helped. One thing that also, I believe, helped quite a bit was she had that Commonwealth Games kind of little carrot dangled out in front of her, which turned out in the end, well, that's a whole nother story. It turned out a little political, but it gave us something different to focus on in the beginning, kind of got us to that point where we didn't have to do long, which
should
isn't
work on
great.
speed for a while.
Work on a little speed, work on just bringing her back slowly, very methodically. And like I said, it was just something totally different, so it's fun again for her. So I kind of saw that even last year with her season through 2014, just kind of re-embracing the fun in the sport. Then we were ramping up. Obviously, she had some good races. Ironman Sweden win. The thing I think with last year, and what I always say, it is long term, and where if you're going to get to B or C, you have to go through A. You have to go through all the points to get to this. So we were definitely lacking in bike volume, and I'm one of those coaches that I don't like to push I too much, and then be to the point where my athlete's broken, now we got to fix. I always kind of like, maybe I'm just a little on the conservative side, but I'm just kind of try to match it to where I feel the athlete is at, and really match that load and when to push them and when to pull back. So I think we were really able to use last year as that foundation to continue building this year, and we had a much smaller race program. So she's like, at this point where we had some amazing blocks of training, got her to some races. When she hit the race, she was on. And it's just wonderful to see. She seems hungrier than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
She's relaxed, healthy, and that's with everyone that I coached. That's exactly what you want as a goal, as a coach, as a goal, to get them to this place that they're in a good spot. You're like, my job's done. They know what to do on race day. They're here, they're healthy, they're ready.
I'll have a drink with an umbrella in it, and they're on their own. See you at the finish line.
Yeah, exactly.
Drop the mic, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. You got it now.
One of the women who I've always thought would do great here is Heather Jackson.
Yes.
Right? She loves the place, for one, And with the way her body has changed over the years, she's become a runner.
Yeah.
Where it used to be, I think she got off the bike going, the cycling is my thing, and I'm not really a runner. She's worked on her swimming to become a better swimmer. She's obviously got the bike, and I think she's got a great run as well.
Yeah.
Don't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at a couple years ago, the open run in Carlsbad, the 1:14 half marathon, I mean, the girl can run, and she's one of those people, she gains momentum. She gets that confidence.
Right.
And I think, like you said, she when you start a sport and you have a few kind of very exposed limiters, to put it kindly.
Yes.
But, you could kind of come in and be a little on the back foot and just feel like, oh my God, the swim. Oh my God. I mean, we were talking last night actually, and she's like, oh, I remember coming out of the water in some races, 39 minutes was yelled out to me. And she's like, here we go, Yeah. And when you look at that progression, I mean, it's fantastic. And she's gotten to the point where she's coming out with her group of girls that she needs to come out with, and then they get to work on the bike. And it's the same thing. She always had to go all in on the bike, and then usually she'd go so all in on the bike, then the run was
just suffer.
Yeah. So when we first started to work together, I saw that potential in the run, and you're like, you're a really good runner, just have to believe it. But we backed off her bike a little bit. It was actually the first season I worked. We actually officially made it official in Kona, and then I started working with her, and then in the season of 2013 she came out one Alcatraz, one Oceanside, and it was just like bam, here we are, and you could see that confidence growing. At the same time with the Oceanside race, we really set her to a pretty specific plan. Just I wanted her on the bike, a little more controlled. Here's the places where you can let it open a little, and the thing too is you look at a lot of these athletes, they have the instinct. A lot of times they just don't trust themselves, and you're like, look, you just got to go within and trust yourself. Do you feel that athlete you're riding with is on the ropes? Do you notice okay, I think I can leave her now? So I always try to encourage my athletes to, be internal yet take in externals in a positive way.
Right.
And she raced, to me, I think that was a brilliant race that year, because she, I think Amy Marsh was up front. At the same time, we're like, look, you can spot her sometime. You don't have to come off first. You can run quicker than her, So just kind of got her in that spot. She came off 60 seconds down, and her transitions are blazing, came off, and then it was like, she won. But it was another one of those where it's like a light bulb for her, like, oh, okay, I can use this strength, but I don't have to go be first and stretch the lead out, You can see Lionel Sanders is kind of going through those growing pains.
Yes.
He's an incredible talent. Where you see some of the races, like even in Oceanside, to make that gap up to people like Frodeno and Potts is incredible.
Yeah.
But then he gets there, and instead of sitting in a little bit and he just
tries to
go, like a bull, and these guys aren't going to let him go.
No.
So then he just expends himself so much more. You just need to be like, whoa there, Tiger.
Relax a little bit.
Exactly.
So the nice thing about this race for someone like Heather, in a lot of races, you got 3 or 4 or 5 good pros.
Yeah.
Here there's 8,000.
Yeah.
Right? So wherever she comes out of the water, she's going to have good people to ride with,
Yeah.
which is a positive rather than being in that no man's land, right?
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And I think that the great thing about coaching athletes that do have to come from behind, the successful ones, the champions, like the Heathers, the Rinnies,
Right. Yes.
Angela, Liz, a lot of people, they have to get into that mindset where, all right, I know what I need to do. You can be like, man, I wish I swam quicker, but that's done. You put it behind you. Now I just got to get to work, get it done, and you might have people with you, but they're also used to times of no man's land, and having that mental fortitude to work through it, to be focused on the process in the moment. Those are really important characteristics. And I think that's what makes this race so tough, is because it's one of the most bleak, barren races, especially when you're out there, you're looking at the landscape. It's gorgeous, but at the same time, wind, you have lava rock. And if you're out there in no man's land, and especially when you have, the turnarounds, you see a pack of the front pack grows, and you're still there, and you're like, okay, I'm waiting to see that next carrot, and you have to be really, really intrinsically motivated. And, these girls have that trait, but, they have to remind themselves too, but it's,
I've seen it before where Greg Welch was injured in 93, and he watched the race, and he got a real sense of it. So sometimes you can watch it on TV. It doesn't really give you that sense. Seeing when people make moves. And a couple years ago, Heather was doing the chalkboard, right? She was doing the splits. And I think you learn a lot from watching the other women that you're going to be racing against the following year, the year after.
Yeah.
To me, that's a huge positive to know what this race looks like from the inside.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I noticed on the interview she was on with you, I mean, that's exactly what she was saying as
Yeah.
well. You know, that takeaway. This race is about patience. This race, in my opinion,
Yeah,
but I
no
think
question.
there's not a single person probably sitting in this seat that isn't saying that. The thing that's interesting with athletes, when they say it, you're like, are you really going to do it? You know, that's always the thing. You know, you figure 50 men, 50 women, there's always people that are like, man, that was my plan. I don't know what I was doing in the end.
Yeah.
But it is about that. It gets hard at the end. When you're coming back to town, you know you're almost there, but you're at the airport and the wind is howling. And yeah, you got to save a little for later, for sure.
Liz Lyles.
Yes.
7th last year, first American. Very few people talking that much about Liz, but you feel she's probably in the best shape ever.
Oh, absolutely. I'm in a great spot as a coach. Everyone has come up perfectly, nicely. She had a great race in Ironman Brazil, the Pan American Championships, second there. I believe it was another it was a sub-9 performance, I believe.
Yeah.
And win at Wildflower, which was a really big one for her. And she's just been building that momentum. She definitely had maybe not the best experience in Canada at Whistler. Poor her. She loves this weather a lot more. But yeah, so, you know, we've recovered. We've built her up. She's been on a great stretch of training. And I'm really excited for her to race. Now, she can't wait.
When you have a race like Wildflower,
Yeah.
where you've got your 2 athletes, Heather's trying to win her 4th in a row.
I had 3. I had the podium this year.
Oh,
Rachel
too. Oh,
yeah,
my
I
God.
know.
So you're like going, Heather, you had such a good try. I mean, how do you balance that when you want to be excited for everybody? You are excited for everybody.
You have to balance
but you can't
it.
be too excited for
Yeah,
one.
yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I've had that in my career a long time now,
Yes.
and you know, you just have to balance it, and
Right.
you know, they're all important. You know, it's like a parent. I'm sure every parent would say, oh, I do
This
have
is my
a favorite
kid.
yeah, exactly. But you got to show that they're all, you know, your favorite. I would love to have that Wildflower problem though this weekend.
Wouldn't it be good?
Yeah,
you
I'll
have
take
all
that.
3 of those guys coming down.
That's a good problem. I'll deal with it.
I like it. What have you learned just from the whole? You know, you're balancing a lot of athletes. You've also got like a Hunter Kemper who's trying to make his 5th Olympic team. So you've got a guy doing Olympic distance stuff. You've got some young up and comers like Justin Dare. How do you balance all of that? That there's a lot of personalities, and a coach is also a therapist at the end of the day, right? That's a big part of that, keeping people pumped up.
Absolutely. It's also, this is an interesting way to look at it, but when you really think about it as the season progresses, it's much like periodization, how we talk about with your training, the racing,
Right.
your peak races. As a coach, you've got your lower times of the year where it's just, all right, we're building base, this is what we're doing, strength, and you get your athletes going with that. Emotionally, you're maybe not as necessary
Sure.
for them. You know, you're just like, all right, here we go. We set our goals. We're moving forward with this. Obviously, in the season and in post races, that's where it goes up with almost. If you look at the graph and you look at your peaks, that's how stress and also the your involvement and what you need to do as a coach. Those different traits as a coach, where you need to be that psychologist, or you need to be that mentor, you need to be that friend. You have to have that full gamut of skills as a coach,
Right.
but they're not always, year round called into use. But there's definitely times where you're like, all right, here we go. You definitely have to be there in those capacities. And sometimes you also got to be, a little kick to the butt, like, hey, this is good. Let's get moving with this, or this is what we need to do.
Right. On race day, are you the guy out there doing splits? Are you okay? So you're busy all day.
Oh, absolutely.
You're
You're
one
just
arm
running around.
paper hanger. You're trying to figure out everything.
I know this one. Usually, I have some women, some men pros. This year I got both, and age group. Barry Ogden's my sole age grouper this year, but yeah, he's ready to rip too. But yeah, I actually have one of my longtime amateur athletes that I work with, and she's a coach as well, Rebecca McKee.
Okay,
so
she'll help you out.
she's and I introduced her to all the pros yesterday. I was like, look, we're gonna make sure that splits are covered. At one point, the race is gonna be pretty spread apart. I'm gonna try to be everywhere, keeping track, and obviously you have a lot of these out and back, so you can cross roads, and if you know where your athletes are at, you could be there.
Right.
But at the same time, I wanted a backup plan, and and the thing is too, I know a lot of people will have friends out there, but you want to provide those accurate splits. It makes such a big difference. Like I've seen last year, in one particular case, I was counting for an athlete, and she was 10th, and I think, or actually she was 12th, but she was gaining on 10th, and she was almost there. But then someone, before I was able to say anything, yelled out, "You're 12th!" Or wait a second, no, she was 10th. She was a couple ahead, And I was like, oh no, don't do that, because I've been like, counting, and I'm like, some people would like yell out wrong splits or wrong positions, and I always say, just you got to be sure, because these guys are out there in one position. I mean, money position, 10th spot. It's if you're wrong by one,
Oops.
yeah, exactly. So you got to really be really sharp. You're trying to get as much information as possible.
Yeah.
I got friends back home that are gonna be watching our men live, texting me with,
Yes.
So yeah, you just got to try to get as much intel as you can out
All
there.
your ducks in a row.
Exactly,
That's it.
exactly.
Cliff, thanks so much, man, for taking time.
Absolutely.
Tomorrow's going to be a busy day for you.
Yeah, I know, man. I know.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you so much. Love being on.
Cliff English has been our guest. We're presented by ES Sports Nutrition, Cliff Bar, Timex, Thoroka, Tanya Pura Resort, Rudy Project, Slow Twitch, Poncho Man. Take us out.
A big fish sailing on the ocean. A big fish sailing on the ocean. And breakfast with Bob.
Poncho Man! Woo!